this model question is about the climate of British regions as well as the Egypt. So it's a two statement question. The first statement, Britain has no climate, only weather. And the second statement, Egypt has no weather, only climate. So first of all, we have to understand the difference between weather and climate. Now imagine this, all of a sudden in an afternoon we are having, say, thunderstorms, right? Now, is that a change in weather or is that a change in climate? It's actually change in weather. So weather means it's actually a short-term phenomenon, change in precipitation, temperature or weather events, that we call it as weather, right? A change in weather. And in the case of climate, climate can be seen as long-term average of the weather, right? How is the weather of a particular region in a long term, and that we call it as climate, right? Now before going to the answer, let's take a look at these two regions. First of all, the Britain. So Britain is located towards the mid-latitude regions, and it comes under the influence of various kinds of air masses, right? Now air masses, they are like large quantity of air having same property of temperature and moisture, and they can be divided based on the humidity as maritime air mass and continental air mass, and based on temperature it can be divided as Arctic or polar or like tropical, right? Now since the Britain is lying in a mid-latitude region, it comes under the influence of various kinds of air masses ranging from, say, tropical maritime air mass, coming from the oceans, right? Then the tropical continental air masses coming from the tropical continental regions, then the polar continental air mass coming from the continental regions of the polar region, which are the air mass will be more dry and it will be very cold, and the Arctic maritime air mass, right? The air mass coming from the polar oceans, it will be having more moisture in it, but it will be extremely cold, right? So briefly, like the Britain is under the influence of various kinds of air masses, and for this reason, right, the weather influence of all these all these air masses, it will be different. So that means the climate or the weather in the Britain is constantly changing. Maybe in the morning it will be very clear sky will be there, and all of a sudden in the afternoon it will rain, and then in the evening it will be freezing cold. So that it means like the weather keeps on changing, and we can say that it's not having a static climate, rather than it keeps on changing. And for that reason it can be said like the Britain is not having climate rather than it's having weather. It means like it keeps on changing. Now coming back to the Egypt, right? Now Egypt is located towards the east of Sahara, and it's predominantly having high temperatures as well as dry conditions existing in Egypt. And in the case of Egypt, unlike the Britain, the climate of the Egypt is very static, right? So we are not having frequently changing weather in the case of Egypt, right? Mostly throughout the year it's very warm, and especially during the summer months it's very warm, and during the winter months it will be very cold, right? But we are not having frequently changing weather in the case of Egypt. And for that reason, right, since the Egypt is having this kind of static weather, we can say like the Egypt is having climate and it's not having weather. Now coming back to the question, right? The first statement, Britain has no climate, only weather, which is true. Egypt has no weather, only climate, which is again true. So here the answer comes out as C, which is both 1 and 2.